Board meeting to order on May 26, 2022. Roll call.
Rich?
Here.
April?
Here.
Pete?
Here.
Ed?
Here.
Gary?
Here.
John?
Here.
And Arby's excused.
I'd ask everyone to join us in pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
any citizen comments or concerns? There are none, we'll move on. You sure? You sure? No, we got some great ways now. Approval of minutes from April 28th. Two things, one, the motions. Janine, you have just the first names, you should probably put the last names in for all the motions and seconds as well.
Okay.
Last sentence of the first page, Harsbro gave examples of those who were not on the list, but they were on the list. I'm not positive, I think that was, but they were supposed to be on the list. But to say those who are not on the list are on the list is kind of contradictory. And I haven't known to contradict themselves. And under the discussion action regarding contracting with the town of Palmyra, two different places it's stating that I attended the town of Palmyra meeting. I did not state that because I did not attend it. And so I had concerns because of things that were being said at those meetings, but I never said I attended them. Any other discussion?
Make a motion to approve the minutes from April 28th with the corrections. So noted.
Motion by April, seconded by Ed. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I abstain, I wasn't here.
Motion carries 5-0-1 with Peter abstaining. Next, discussion action for appointment, reappointment of board members. For clarification, per the agreement, starting June 1st, the president and vice president will change. So starting June 1st, Don will be the board president, Gary will be the board vice president. And the appointments of the citizens are done by the municipal boards at their meetings, not at this board meeting. So I don't believe there's any action needed unless there's someone believes otherwise. If not, we'll move on to treasurer's report, accounts payable, journal entry log.
And I handed Rich, and I needed to amend the accounts payable with a check for the life insurance company to do the life and disability for Google and Fritz.
Are you amending the amount of the check, or are you just adding it to the list?
Because we just did that today, and we need to get that in with the paperwork.
It would be check 1176, check number, and the amount of $213.73. Lincoln National Life Insurance. I don't know if you know, Janine, you did it today, but it's dated June 2nd. I just noticed that. The other ones you dated today.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yes, please.
Rich, just a quick question on the accounts payable. Did you have the re-energies bill from this month?
No, I did not.
We included that in because I got the little thing, we don't have the bill.
have it, I thought maybe you got it changed over. 'cause I
No.
didn't get it. All right,
Do you know what the account number is for the life insurance?
Yes, it is A52603.
Thank you.
So for the We Energies bill, there's just an email that I always get that goes from Justin yet, with the amount. So we did add that in there, thinking you would have a bill tonight, so that is in there for the 600 and some. $671.99 was that one. Check 1170.
The check that's made out for Waukesha County, that has a number of different accounts listed,
Yes,
what is that in reference to? Do you know offhand?
that's fuel. Is that the one you're looking at?
I don't know, it just says Waukesha County.
Yeah, it's the fuel bill where we go and fill up the ambulances and the vehicles. And that's,
Okay, I see it.
And it's broken down by apparatus and vertical.
Right.
yeah, I can show you the,
Sorry, I can take it out in a second. I think it was just, the numbers were off because the 616 is separate.
the ambulances are separate. Yeah,
So when I was looking at the totals here, they were not matching.
got it.
the cellular phone expense, we have FirstNet, US Cellular, and Verizon.
The US Cellular is a carryover bill from North Prairie Fire that we finally got canceled, and there was that amount due. The Verizon bill, again, was a carryover from North Prairie Fire, and Eagle Fire, that we both got canceled, so we were only on FirstNet, but those are the last payments of those, that we finally got all of that canceled and taken care of.
So was it just an old bill that we finally got rid of, or have we been paying every month?
We've actually not been paying, we've been trying to get it canceled, but we had to go through the whole administrative process. I know Melissa over at North Prairie PD also helped get that. For that particular bill, we just haven't been paying it. And then to wait for that final bill, so that is the final bill for Verizon and for US Cellular.
All right, and that's okay, I'm not worried about the monthly bills. I'm just trying to understand, have we been paying US Cellular and Verizon every month? No?
We've been getting a monthly bill, but because we've been trying to cancel it with we haven't been paying it every month.
All right, so what we've only been paying every month is First Net.
Correct.
And in the budget, we're at 65% of our budget.
There's two cellular breakouts, there's one for ambulance and one for fire. The, one is under the ambulance expense part,
Yeah, that's the one.
the operating expense. Then there is a second cellular one for the fire, which is under communications. Under the 5200 category, there's a cellular phone fire app that we're at 19% of.
So, are we charging to the wrong line item?
No, we haven't been, because the ambulance each use a jetpack, a Wi-Fi, but we always split that bill up throughout the year, move to different places, like the command vehicle has a Wi-Fi in it, and that's used in both places. Also, based on the budget, we've been able to use in the past the FAP money, because you can use FAP money to take care of that, and so we're gonna transition some more of that over to fire, so we'll be good on those two accounts. And this year, because of the changeover, we don't have that FAP money to use for the digital expense.
On the profit and loss, under A 5300, for fire board, there's a line item that indicates A 53003. There's no description, but it says that we've used $227.50 with no budgeted amount or percent of budget. Do we know what that represents?
This is one that should be charged to the 5003 legal services.
Okay, so it needs to be just
It'll
corrected.
get moved down, yeah.
You realize you have two different lines with the same
Yes,
audit number?
yes.
And looking at that same page, going down a little farther, the last expense line item is a payroll expense. I thought that was being transferred. I remember last month it was a couple $100. Why did we still have $15.72?
This is from this last payroll that I just did, and for some reason, the new people are still, for whatever reason, it still goes to this payroll expenses for the taxes and social security, so I'm having to transfer it, and I keep changing it to charge to the correct one, but that group still isn't, so it's in process. But I just did payroll today, and so that's why that one is still there. That'll be gone.
And you're gonna get the setup corrected so it doesn't keep doing it?
Hopefully, I keep trying.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the May treasurer's report, accounts payable, and journal entry log.
I'll second.
Motion by Peter, seconded by Gary. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstaining.
Motion carries 5-0-1 with April abstaining. Next line item is discussion action regarding accounts payable cutoff 1 week prior to board meeting.
So Janine and I discussed this and talked about it for this exact reason. If we were able to set or have it approved that we could do a cutoff date a week before this meeting, that Janine would be able to get all of these reports and email them out in advance for the board members to be able to look at, to decipher through, and have the questions. Just hoping that it may speed up the process of the meeting a little bit to be able to get those out ahead of time. So we were just asking for the board to approve that, to let all the vendors know that, you know, whatever Thursday it is, the week before the meeting, that would be the cutoff date for any bills. And then she could do all the checks, get the reports out, and there would be time to decipher it before the meeting. I know that Village of North Prairie does that. That's kind of where I got the idea, and talking with Gary and talking with the office place over there, is yeah, we get those out a week ahead of time, so we have time to see them before the meeting. That's the only why it's on there, to request it.
I don't have an issue with it. You do realize you're not gonna make that cutoff on November, December meetings. Your vendors are gonna be told the third Thursday of the month, and then that's gonna be the night of the meeting in November, December.
For those 2 meetings, right?
Right, to get the stuff out ahead of time and review it ahead of time is good.
And that, I mean, and even those, it could be the second Thursday, you know, that's why we're asking for the week ahead. And then for those 2 months, we can let the majority of the vendors know that we do everyday business with, hey, just so you know, if you want.
I don't think your vendors are gonna care about those 2 months.
Yeah, I probably.
They're gonna say our billing's this date, you know, we set it up
Right.
for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve sending out the financial reports to board members 1 week prior to the board meeting.
I'll second.
Motion by Peter, seconded by Gary. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion action regarding WRS life insurance.
I have good news, which is why I have the check tonight. We were able to work with the agent who deals with Lincoln National, and that's the same company that the town of Eagle, Village of Eagle works with. And they were able to get us the insurance, the life and disability insurance, for the chief and for Katie, at basically the same cost. His is a couple dollars more and Katie's is a couple dollars less. And the best part is, the life and long-term disability rate lock is 3 years and short-term disability rate lock is 2 years. So I was really glad to get that, for them, since that's been a goal. And then the second thing is, I still need the WRS and the
Yep.
health insurance, so,
I still gotta get the access for you, so you can. Yep.
yeah, cause I need to be able to get going on that.
In the, I don't know if you would call it the underwriter, used to be part owner of the company, Steve, I don't know if you ever met him. Very nice gentleman, but he came out today and got all the paperwork signed, and took it all back with him so he could get it all put in, so.
Which is why we have to send the check.
So do we need to do anything on that as a board, or is that just taken care of?
That's taken care of, cause it was already, that's a benefit that they have.
Alright.
Same as the health insurance and the WRS are all benefits.
Good.
I asked for discussion action regarding the departmental feedback. Handed it out last month. I'm wondering if you guys have any ideas.
I read it, the only question that I have is how did that whole process come up? I don't remember the board discussing any feedback questions or us being allowed to put entry into that. How did that come?
I stopped down at the business meeting and I asked for feedback from the department.
Well, I would hope that in the future, if we're gonna ask for feedback in the department, that we would be able to do that as a board, and everybody would be able to ask specific questions and get input on that. I think just kind of throwing out, we'd like feedback is not particularly an effective tool. There can be a question in there for general feedback, but if you're looking for very specific things, I think you have to have some decent questions, to garbage in, garbage out. That's my only comment on that.
Well, just for clarification, there wasn't questions of what is the feedback on the color of the building. The question was, can you give us 3 things that we did right, in your opinion, 3 things we did wrong, in your opinion, and 3 things to look forward, to move forward with. It wasn't questions of, what's your ideas on this?
Well, and
He was asking the
and
department.
that's fine, Rich, but I think that if we're gonna start to quiz the department, I as a board member would like to know about that before we all of a sudden do that. Because I don't wanna have individual board members all of a sudden showing up at meetings asking different questions without the whole group knowing about it, or at least a group. That's my only comment on that. So as we go forward, I would hope that would take place.
I think asking for feedback is just like having a suggestion box. I mean, it just happened to be that it was in person versus, done in advance.
It's looking
I think
forward.
asking for feedback is asking for feedback, so I don't think it's really that much of a concern. I think the question though, from Rich is essentially what do we want to do with this information moving forward?
One suggestion I would have on the ideas, they talk about updating and replacing equipment. I know Eagle, we had a capital equipment plan. Went out, I think, 20 years for the equipment.
Yeah, almost 30, yep.
Right at the end of the Eagle Fire Department tenure, the membership went and bought some new Jaws of Life. So I guess my suggestion, if we're talking about equipment, can we expand, I'm presuming you're gonna do one for Kettle Moraine, some type of projection of what the equipment.
Yeah,
will
that
be.
was in the budget that was approved last year.
With the equipment, that's for capital, can you expand that for, I don't wanna go down to like hammers and everything else, but more significant hand tool cost items, Jaws of Life, chainsaws, things like that?
Yeah, I guess we're, from a board standpoint, give me a dollar amount of what, typically a capital expense would be like over $5,000 or less than 5,000 is a tool replacement cost. I could do, I'm more than willing to do that, break it down. Jaws of Life, that was a $17,000 purchase for that equipment, so that would definitely be a capital expenditure. A chainsaw is $600.
Yeah, something that would have a significant budget impact, so when we're looking at the budget in the fall, we can say, hey, next year, we should be looking at getting, I'm gonna call it hand tools, I don't know if you wanna call them hand tools. To me, capital is more the trucks, the ambulances, but we're looking at getting this new equipment, it's getting old, we'd like to replace it. Even if it's a $15,000 total cost, that can be a big impact on the budget when we're getting down to thousands of dollars. So.
Yeah, for this next budget, I can do a breakdown of that.
Scott, do you need a cutoff price to define in capital? Is that
Well, like Rich said, if we need like 10 hand tools and it's over 5,000, then it kind of becomes that package price.
Yeah.
I'll have to work with the chiefs and sit down and make a plan of what we're looking at needing and see where that price comes up. To either make it into a part of the capital expense, or if it falls below 5,000, then it's just a budgetary. Yeah.
Yeah, because your equipment maintenance has a line item anyways.
Right.
But if the line item's $3,000, and all of a sudden you're gonna have something that's gonna be a $5,000 expense next year, we're already gonna be behind the eight ball.
Yeah.
Okay.
One other question I have in here is just, moving forward, it looks like additional communication is needed between the members, and so, or the employees. I guess I'd just be curious if there's something that we could encourage or help with that, in that regard, to try to make sure that we've got information moving out to all the employees? Or did you have a
Yes.
thought on that?
That was the Microsoft 365 with the email system that we did set up finally. When, I remember the night that Rich was there, I was actually headed out to a board meeting over in North Prairie. But that was very early on as well. I think we were 3 months in, just the beginning of 3 months. And so with that communication process, people have figured out now how to use the new email system to be able to communicate back and forth. We're also communicating, and correct me if I'm wrong, through I Am Responding. We have a messaging center between everybody. Some people that weren't used to the I Am Responding didn't know how to send messages to the chiefs, to the captains, to the lieutenants. Now all of that through training, even myself, because I had never used I Am Responding and sending messages out. So we have gotten a lot better at communicating, just because of training and learning how to use the tools that we have. But there's always improvement on that, so.
Anything else?
I just want to expound on what Pete brought up, and I guess this board as a whole, if, Ed's got a concern, or question, or Gary, or myself, or any of us, and in due process of how that should be implemented, I think should be discussed amongst all of us, so hey, we're aware of it, but that we all have our input into it, and also that we know about it ahead of time. So, and this is all moving forward. So.
Moving forward, I'll oblige, gentlemen, but I will tell you, I will agree to disagree. I would believe Don, you was the town chairman, Gary, you was the village president, you probably talk to your employees. You don't go through the board for that. This is no different. If I can get feedback from the board, from the employees, I will bring it to the board. I brought this to the board. When I was asked about it, I said, I'm taking it to the fire board. This isn't for me, it's for the fire board. This is a tool for us to get better. My communication with them will not stop, nor should it, nor should any of ours. If it's going to be go to a meeting to request something, I'll bring it to the board first. I'll oblige. But you and I, we're going to agree to disagree on this one. Anything else? Next, discussion regarding staffing and call response. I put this on there because I would like to have a brief discussion about our staffing before we start talking more about contracting with the town of Palmyra. Because I have a huge concern with our staffing. I've talked about it at the other meetings. I did ask Scott for the report of who went on the calls. I think that the report's probably gonna go into more discussion, but I'd like to be able to put a little data together for the board so we can kind of overview it. Because I'm a little confused when looking at the reports of what we get of the calls and how many people responding. We have several calls that 4 people responded, but there's 5 people listed who went to it. There's calls that 3 people responded, only 2 were listed. I think Scott had 3 or 4 that said they had no report. So some of the reporting, a little concerning trying to go through some of this. What I did do was I took the data Scott gave us and I kind of looked at it of who's going to the calls. And 20% of our calls are being responded by, I think it was 5 people. I think we're going to have a burnout factor. I broke it down, all calls, daytime calls, paid on calls. But 25% of the calls, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, this is not in your packet, I just printed this off tonight. Have 5 people that went to 25% of the calls, looking at all the calls, daytime, paid on call. To me, that's pretty significant. quarter of your calls, what did I say, 5? When 5 people are going to those. Now, we potentially add more calls without adding to our staffing. Historically, management, old school, used to talk to you, go to your 10% that's giving you everything and push more harder for them. Those are the people you go to because that's the people you know they're gonna help. So we get more calls. These are the same people that are gonna go to more calls, and it's gonna be a burnout factor. Some of the response time, I think, gets to be a little concern too. I think the response time potentially shows a problem with some of our staffing. I know there's gonna be different factors. I can't just say, because it took us 15 minutes to respond to a call, that we didn't have staffing. Maybe they were on a different call. So without necessarily looking at every single call and every single incident, it's hard to say, but on average, I think it's like 8 minutes to get to a on scene. And that's not bad. Our daytime's better than our paid on call, which it should be. People responding from home when they're paid on call. The difference isn't quite as big as I thought it would be, but 8 minutes to get onto a call on average. So now we go to another department. If there's another station, maybe that response isn't as bad, maybe our staffing isn't quite as bad, but how do we staff that if we don't have more people? I know last month Scott talked about some people going in for background checks. And hopefully the fire commission would be meeting to have more. I believe it was part-time, I don't think it was paid on call, I think it was just part-time.
Yep.
I don't know if the background checks are done or not, but there hasn't been a commission meeting. So we had potential people, hopefully we still get them, but we haven't gotten them yet. So we look at contracting with another municipality, what do we do for our staff? And I know monetary becomes a big factor in this, when we talk about contracting, but I can't express enough my concern over burning out our staff.
I would absolutely agree. Obviously, we're short-staffed. I don't know, do we have an update on those that were pending last month?
Yeah, we haven't called a commission meeting at this point. I just got those backgrounds last week, before the fire, and so I've been recouping from the fire with all the paperwork and everything else. So I've been remiss in the last week to get a hold of Rich to get a fire commission meeting, but one of the last 5 is hireable based on background.
And it's good to get one more. I mean, I don't want to dismiss that, but
It is, but.
it's not the 5 that was hopeful.
Right.
Do you know how June's month looks for staffing? Do we have openings?
No, June staffing is full, even with some of the vacation time that I'm gonna be taking. We do have full staff at both stations in June.
Any other discussion?
Scott, is there things that can be done to improve the numbers that are available for runs?
As far as the numbers,
That people are available, or is it just all due to timing, or?
well, some of it is, I mean, and as you can see from the report, and I use the military time to differentiate, daytime, nighttime calls, it depends who's around. Sometimes, there's 2 people, but if we have a more critical call, less critical call, we have 2 EMTs at each station. A lot of times we'll get Dennis Sudbrick, and wherever he is, he just all of a sudden shows up on scene, and he can be a driver when you need 2 EMTs in the back of the ambulance. Dave Rock teacher shows up, and then one of them will go home, one of them will drive. Because it's always best to have at least 4 eyes and 2 sets of hands in the back of that ambulance. Sometimes that's not a luxury, sometimes we can't do that. There's a few on here, and I agree with Rich that, the majority or, 20%, yeah, if we get 4 or 5 people, some of those we will send home. A lot of times David Pugh, he's off on a Tuesday or a Wednesday or working from home, so he'll show up on a call, and it's like, thank you for coming, okay, but you're gonna go home. And, we don't need you to transport, but thanks for helping pick up the patient and get him in the ambulance. So we do some of that management. This is, I wasn't exactly sure where the demographic of this was going, so this is everybody that made it to the scene, whether they got sent home or stayed for that call, and that's what this is. There's a couple of calls in here, yeah, with 6 or 7 people. So thank you for showing up, P&B, okay, now you can go home, pulseless non-breather, now you can go home, we don't need it, we've got a medic and 2 EMTs, we're calling the medical examiner. So they were there for a half hour, and then we send them home. So we do try to manage that as best we can. Sometimes, yes, we have some extra people there. Sometimes it's nice to have a couple extra hands when you're doing things. But I can certainly try to and work with our officers to send people home when we don't need them for sure. And we can have that communication through our officer meetings.
Scott, I know that the Sheriff's Department was saying that they were having an increase in response time due to the Highway 67 construction. Is that affecting any of your operations with this?
It is, because it is open now to Highway C, even though it's not painted. But then you get to Highway C and they start asking you to gear off. So to get over to Summit or to Oconomowoc Memorial, we have to go all the way down to North Prairie and cut across on Highway E and then back. Some of the response times, if it's out on CI, we have to go down N and out that way instead of going up 67 and across. So some of the response times, that is part of our lower call volume area, is out in that CIZC area. But it does increase a little bit to get out there.
And when are they looking at finishing that up? Sometime mid-July, I think?
Yeah, July 8th is from the construction company, July 8th. They said they're gonna be done. But promises, because they move so fast on it, that it's gonna be done sooner, for people that, especially that live right there. But yeah, the absolute date is July 8th.
Okay.
And to say you're gonna have a talk with your officers and, manage people and send them home if you don't need them. Please don't take this conversation, my concern of the staffing, to send people home and then say, well, we don't have people coming to calls because we're sending them home. I don't want this to be, we can't get people coming in now because we had too many people coming to calls. The staffing is more than just who's responding to the call. Because yes, part of it's gonna depend on what the call is. So you can have a call 2 people can handle, you might have a call that you need 6 people to handle. Not every call is the same. But I got a scanner, and I've heard on a scanner where there's been someone at the scene saying, hey, I need more help. You got 1 person at the scene. So, all right, we had 3 people that responded. That's fine, but it's also, we had 3 people that responded with a major delay because you had 1 person there saying, hey, I need people here. That's a staffing concern that doesn't really show up on the report because it shows you covered it. You covered it significantly longer because you didn't have people showing up. And even people showing up, hey, they can go home. That helps manage it, but if someone's going to those calls, whether it's 4 in the afternoon or whether it's 2 in the morning, they respond and then go home, all right, well, it's still gonna be a burnout because they're going to 20, 30, 40 calls, right? They can go there and it can be, hey, thanks for the help, but we got this covered. You guys all have your adrenaline rush, so it's gonna be an adrenaline rush to begin with, and now you go home, there's still going to be a factor of that person, even though they didn't transport on 10 different calls, they still respond on 10 different calls. And those are my types of concerns when we're talking about adding another municipality.
And just from a perspective of, you've got employees, first of all, you're short-staffed, you've got employees coming, and now you're sending them home. I think that's concerning, truthfully. I mean, obviously, and that's part of the communication issue is there a way to get the communication out to them, or can they reach the people that are on scene ahead of time to find out if they need assistance before they come out? You know what I'm saying? And I don't know if that instant messenger program works or not, but my concern is if you don't have enough staff and you have people showing up to your calls and you're like, yeah, hey, we need to limit the staff that are here so you don't need to be here anymore, that's gonna potentially hinder them from going to further calls. Because, well, if they're only gonna need me for a few minutes, why am I even going? why am I responding? So it's a double-edged sword, don't get me wrong.
It is.
It absolutely is, but that's part of the communication issues that I'm talking about, where if we have staffing, or if we're lacking in an area of staffing and people are having to come in for additional calls, and then we're sending them home 20 minutes later, that's concerning.
And we do have a tool through the instrument that I had spoke about before with I Am Responding. And again, we're trying to teach more people how to use that. And you get your page on your phone, you hit a button, and that says, I'm on my way. And so that everybody responding can look at that and say, okay, yeah, we got 6 people going to a alpha level call, which is the least serious kind of call. Yeah, I really don't need to go, because there's already 6 people going. So we do have that communication through that, but some people, just because it's us, we're all type A personality and we want to be there and help no matter what, is that we're just going to go anyhow. Even if I get out of my car and go, you guys got it, need help getting the bag out of the house, and then I'm going to go home, that's just who we are, right? But I also agree that, yeah, we start sending people home all the time, that they're going to get burnt out from just not being able to help or getting there and leaving. So, yeah, I agree on both aspects.
Any other discussion?
About item 11? Or into,
Yeah. If not, we'll move on. Discussion action regarding contracting with Town of Tamara. I did respond, I had an email from Nona, I saw Gary forwarded on too, that I apparently was one person I thought, but she must have sent it to multiple people. My response is in your packet. I did tell her I was still gonna have it on the agenda because I still think we need to talk about it. I truly hope their meeting in a couple of weeks goes well with the village of Palmyra, and they can get back on track and get coverage for both municipalities in a mutual friendly way, but I think we still need to have our discussion of what it takes on our end, because if we wait, when Ona's email said she would get back to us in 45 to 60 days after their meeting, that's putting us end of August. To do this in 3 months, it's gonna be hard enough to do it now, and then in less than 3 months' time, so that's why I did keep it on the agenda. Last month, the motion was to get some numbers of what it's going to take. Do we have numbers of what it's gonna take?
They were going to present that tonight in the closed session. That was on the agenda, but when she asked to table the closed session, those numbers were not shared.
The Town of Palmyra Board was gonna share what they're willing to.
They were gonna give a presentation, in that closed session with what their thoughts were, and with a presentation to that, in the closed session.
Well, from my aspect, I guess before we start entertaining what they're willing to offer, we should know what it's going to cost us to do it.
And that is dependent on their asking and their requirements for staffing. And that was part of their presentation as well.
Well, it sounds like we have to wait for Palmyra to come and make their presentation, and can we specifically ask them to show up at the next meeting and do that presentation, recognizing that there is a time deadline?
Actually, that was the request for this meeting. That was the
I
motion, that they were to
understand.
come tonight with the information.
But this has got to, next month has got to be the drop dead date for them to come and make a presentation, because we need to look at it, you know.
I guess I'm confused on they're gonna present what they want for staffing. I thought it was going to be a station staff Monday through Friday during the day and paid on call at night, just like we do ours.
Yeah, it would mirror what we do now. 2 people at their station Monday through Friday. And based on those hours, I can talk about our costs, but I have no idea what they are anticipating presenting to the district.
I don't know either, but I guess I'm confused if another municipality is gonna ask us to contract to cover them. We're the established district, do we not say to cover them, this is what it will cost us?
Yes.
All right, but we don't know what it's gonna cost us.
Just for staffing, yes, we do. $126,000.
And how did you get those numbers?
Based on the same way we're staffing now, with part-time employees and then with their calls for service and, based on 2.5 hours per call, just like we average with us, some more, some less, and coming up with and using our pay rates.
Because I was trying to figure out what our cost would be, and the other factor is the equipment, and I have no idea on the equipment thing.
And that could be what they're presenting as to how much they're willing to pay for equipment, how much they're willing to put into the building, all that kind of stuff that would normally be a cost that we would absorb. If they're gonna pay for it, then we won't absorb it.
But part of my concern is
Who knows?
looking at last month's budget report. I took our payroll, divided by 2, because we have 2 stations, divide that by 2, multiply by 4, because it was a quarter of the year. That comes out to $236,000. So if we're gonna say